Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad, and today we have a special guest from Tap Alpha, Cy, and all the changes that are going on with his fund. So let's talk about that today, Cy.
Great to be with you, Brad. Thanks for having me. It's been quite a volatile run on the market, so I wanted to sort of share some of the updates and how we're managing through it.
That's right. You brought on a new tool in your toolbox. Go ahead and explain what that tool is to everybody.
Yeah, I'll give a little context too. Part of the philosophy of the company and the fund is when you learn stuff and when there's data to support it, making sure we're always iterating and doing better. And so, I think a lot of people have been feeling that the markets in 2025 have been extremely volatile, historic moves in both directions. And a good kind of case study was recently on April 9th. That was one of them. So if everybody remembers, April 9th was when the administration sent out a social media update that the tariffs were going to be paused for 90 days, compared to other rallies. That was the third biggest rally since World War II. And so when you're looking at covered call strategies, those are the days that are the real test. And so, TSPY did well, it did fine. We captured about 60% of that upside, which for a covered call strategy with zero DTE, like people would say, yeah, that's reasonable. But the context too, guess where we set our strike from a headroom perspective? We set it at 5.25% above market open that day. And so from a headroom perspective, it was the most headroom we've actually ever set in the history of the fund by some order of magnitude. But that rally blew past it. And so it got us to say, all right, let's stop and look at the environment for a little bit and what's going on. And so it's a broader idea of what people call tail risk. So I don't know, Brad, obviously you're familiar with tail risk. I always wondered, why do people call it that? And for the old statistics folks, it's basically, y'all remember the bell curve? And immediately the market sprung up. It was a 9.5% rally. And I was like, okay, in context, how big is that from statistics class? The tails are those two. I mean, I think of them this way because I have a 2-year-old girl, but they're the animal tails at the end of the bell curve. And it's the events that happen way out there in a standard deviation, normal distribution that's what you've got to protect against in the markets. And, I think of it as like it's low probability, but super high impact moves. And April 9th was exactly one of those. So I was like, wait a minute. Okay, let's think about this in terms of like, without people glazing over for stat class, in terms of standard deviation. Guess how many standard deviations or how many sigmas April 9th move was?
3.
It's a great guess. And 3 is very unlikely. 3's happen, I think, it's like 99% of the activities happen 3 sigma or less. April 9th's move was 7.9 sigmas. Wow. Almost 8 sigmas. And so you look at the math and it says roughly 1 in 100 trillion is when that happens if you're sticking to a standard normal distribution. But here's the lesson. Markets break the rules, and this happens. So yes, it's rare, but as a fund manager, it's still reality of trading the markets. And so we have to have some defensive maneuvers in place in order to try and defend against that. And so that was sort of the whole process we went through. How do we get better to make sure we can protect against it? So what we ended up doing was we changed our prospectus to add a couple tools to it. And we ended up adding the ability to buy a further out of the money long call. So you put our normal position together with that. They're sometimes referred to as credit spreads. And then we also put in, we may not use it very often, but we also put in the prospectus the ability to buy a protective put to protect the underlying capital on the downside. So, for folks that are unaware, ETFs we're kind of constricted to what's in our prospectus for the tools and things that we can use, and then we can apply those tools. So we actually had to update our prospectus to say we're actually adding a couple new things to the toolbox. And so that's what we ended up doing on the 18th. And then the next thing was, so when you have these new tools, you've got to be able to trade them. and how you apply them is very important. So we actually had to update our trading system so that we could actually add these new things and then have executable information that tells us, hey, this is a chance, this is an opportunity where we need to put this thing in place or not. So broad-based credit spreads, one of the tools that we put in the toolbox, we don't use them every day. And it's a tool that we'll use when we see that volatility is high. And the analogy I use is, if you're looking out the window and you see storm clouds and you're going outside, you want to put the raincoat in your backpack. So by changing the prospectus, we put the credit spread in the backpack. And then if it starts raining and if the volatility is a point where we need to use it, we can put on the raincoat. And so we've set some rules where we've defined it as high volatility. The numbers will be flexible. But for example, the last 2 weeks, the volatility of the VIX was 30. It was above 30 for the last 2 weeks. That's a super rare environment. And so when you see those storm clouds, that's when we start to put on that raincoat. So high volatility, 27 was kind of our number this week, where there are 3 days, I think this week we were above 27. We put on that long call just in case there was a administration announcement or something where the potential energy in the market was there, and then that would shoot the market up. And that's sort of what I think of like catastrophic insurance, so that we don't actually have another repeat of April 9th. So that was the big idea. You see a tail event, you do the analysis, you make the changes from a compliance perspective in the prospectus. So we did that on the 18th. We enhanced the system on the 21st, and we put our first trade in with that tool on the 22nd. So we're trying to make quick, very decisive changes so that we can manage the market that we're in. Because as you see, the volatility has been up and the behavior of the market has been different than it was at the end of 2024.
Now, you also mentioned a protective put.
Mm-hmm.
What is the case for that?
The case for that is similar. It's a different volatility level, and part of the reason is I think of upside insurance as basically on the options component. That's when you can lose, and on the downside, it's the capital growth component. That's when you can lose. And so it's basically, do we have a market environment that says VIX is super high and there's negative sentiment out there? If there's potential for it, that's when we'll put one in. The challenges that we're finding, though, protective puts from a cost perspective they're expensive. And so when we use them, we have to be very judicious, because we don't want to give away all of the upside premiums that we've collected in events that we don't have to. So it's one of those things that we have to be able to read signals that tell us when it's worth it. We're working through it. So it's a tool in the toolbox, but we've got to tighten the rules with which we apply it. That's going to take time to refine, but at least those things are in the backpack that we can pull them out when we think we need to.
The Japan carry trade would
Mm-hmm.
have been a nice time to be able to do that protective put.
Exactly. Yep. And so you see these things, and the question is, can you, the reason you put these in at the start of the day when we open the position is because you don't know. It's dynamic. And so what's interesting is, like, on the 9th, I'll never forget it, because this change happened like middle of the trading day. So there was a lot of time value left. So if you have, this defensive position in place, even if you don't carry it all the way through the day, it grows in value. So that's a beneficial offset to the losses that you have, even dynamically in the day. That's one really important feature of those two capabilities, which we didn't have. We're also refining our stop limit capabilities, of course, but stop limits are static. And so we're like this week, for example, Tuesday, I'm tracking if we did a credit spread or if we did a stop limit. And on Tuesday, if we had actually set and executed our stop, we would have lost $20 instead of gaining that 20 and then gaining the premium of $3. And so those are the things that we've got to be very judicious on how we apply these tools, and do it in a systematic way so that we can navigate through what is a very different market than 2024.
On your credit spreads, can you go through the accounting of that? Is it a net, or are you paying out gross?
It's a net. So, for example, typical credit spread that we've done, let's say we get this week, we get $3.10 in our standard option selection. And then we'll buy the further out of the money call for 80 cents or a dollar. And so you take one minus the other, that's the net that we get. And it works both ways. So if you end up, like, if things go through your strike and kind of get towards your long call, you net it out, but the math is going to be inverted. But basically, everything we do, we think of it on net potential, because the money's got to come from somewhere. And so that's how we account for it. And that's how we actually run our distributions, is based on net numbers, versus I know some others do gross, but those dollars, when you subtract it out, they have to come from somewhere, and they're going to come from your NAV, and that's the only other place to get it.
Any thoughts about the market and what is going to drive us higher?
It is certainty is really the thing. I remember the feeling on April 9th, and again, we can't predict the market, and we certainly can't predict administration or the negotiations globally with trade policy. So you just manage the best you can. But what you're seeing is the analogy I have in my head is it's a coiled spring. And on April 9th, the VIX was at 50. So that spring was coiled. And any good news that was going to come out was going to unleash that coil. We're seeing a little bit about that now, where, for example, tariff policy, there's discussions from the administration that they're softening a bit. And so you start to see these movements. Like, if there's a trade deal that comes in and there's an announcement mid-trading day, that's going to have big potential upside moves. The 90-day period for trade policy is critical. So as we get closer to that, we're either going to get more certainty or less, and that's going to drive markets. And so you see that reflected every day, and that's the thing that we're keeping a really close eye on. There's the numbers that we monitor in the market, but there's also the real-time events. And we've always built into the selection algorithm planned events. But how do you manage unplanned events? Well, we're crouched and ready because we feel like there's unplanned events that may be coming over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But that's why we have these defensive tools in the toolbox, because we'll never be able to predict when those events actually happen. We just have to be ready if they do.
What's the reaction time? How fast can you react to the market?
That's what's great about credit spreads and protective puts, is you don't have to. They're in place and they're dynamic and they run immediately. They're there. They're your safety nets. The stop limits can be very quick. So that's one of the things we're improving on right now, is creating quick reaction stop limits. The challenge with stop limits is, like, once you hit them though and they execute, then you're done. So we've got to find a balance, because you saw on days like Tuesday, there's statistically a percentage chance that you'll get a touch and then come back. You don't want to take those losses if you don't have to. So that's where it's the balance between the two. But automating stop limits and getting it done really quickly is an improvement we're making. And then also having those sort of dynamic tools with credit spreads and protective puts.
Very nice. Anything else you want to talk about with changes with the funds?
No, I think, the big thing is just sharing with everyone, like, we're going through this together. Market dynamics have changed, and we have a choice. We either look at, okay, it's tail risk, it's highly improbable that it happens again, so we're just going to continue on. Or you look at the market dynamic and you say, oh wow, the VIX has been above 30 for 2 weeks, like, we probably need to make a change so that we can manage through this environment until we get back to signals that say it's more akin to the original rules. So the bigger idea is, we always have to evolve, we always have to learn. And I think as we go through these market conditions with everyone, our goal is to make the strategy stronger and tighter and more performant. And I think already we're starting to see in our category of what our fund is, that performance shine through with what we're able to deliver. But it's this whole idea of, you've got to learn from the environments and you've got to get better every day. And that's one of the key things that we really try to get done with the funds that we're managing, the fund that we're currently managing.
Sure. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Brad. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Appreciate it, Si.